So we just covered the first big finding of chapter 5, which is vulnerability as emotional healing, and had two sub-findings, two sub-themes. Vulnerability sees vulnerability, and vulnerability as a praxis of truth-telling. Now we're moving on to the second big finding of this chapter, and is one of the big findings of the whole dissertation, one of the 6 big findings of the whole dissertation. And this one is called Grassroot Movement Building as Healing, and really captures the participatory process of building a movement that centers, a grassroots movement that centers healing, intentionally relationship building, vulnerable personal storytelling, the sharing of political education / cultural knowledge and learned movement lessons, while acknowledging the pains, the dreams, and our ancestors across the process. Here's a picture of all of the 80 sites that we reached out to through a 3-part process of emails, phone calls, and then visiting them. Just the chart paper. This led to us actually conducting the circles that we end up conducting. First, us identifying who they are. So let's read a little bit. The Healing Justice Summit is going to be the focus of thinking about building a movement for healing, and really the energy that was going on nationally around healing justice, the work that H.O.L.A was doing with the 35 to 50 circles to that point there, all of our elders, ancestors, legacy, and rituals, and community folks that we stand on, really bringing that wisdom together to talk about how do we sustain an echo of that our culture could heal, that healing comes from us and our experiences. So this ethnographic analysis of the summit is really, documenting analysis that talk about why building a movement is important for healing, for youth development particularly, and community development. So the 2017 Healing Justice Summit brought together over 150 youth, organizers, community leaders, community-based organizations, academic scholars, policymakers, artists, activists, advocates, parents, community residents, poor individuals, women of color, trans folks, formerly incarcerated people, elders, ancestors, people using drugs, people in low-income communities, people from middle-class communities, together to discuss building a healing justice movement. People travel from Oakland, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Chicago. They came from airports, plane delays, housing projects, living room couches, gentrifying communities to share approaches, frameworks, and current threads in regards to cultural healing. The summit extended invitations to all those who have participated in the 35 to 50 circles up to that point. The summit included various trainings / workshops / healing circles, keynote speeches, breakout sessions, music performances, and films, screenings, all related to grassroots indigenous people, knowledge and wisdom on how we can heal, why healing is important, what we've been doing with healing. The Healing Justice Summit in 2017 aim was to connect and to build relationships across issue lines, state borders, and political campaigns with grassroots leaders and organizations practicing healing-centered organizing. We co-created this platform with 4 questions in mind. What are healing-centered approaches to youth development and community development, and how are they practiced in different contexts under different circumstances? Question 1. Question 2. What are the implications for growing a national network of youth practitioners, community leaders, organizers, scholars, and educators using healing justice strategies in youth development and community development? Number 3, what are inspirational examples of grassroots / cultural leadership youth organizing, and intergenerational community building that can inspire hope, collective resistance, action, and peace nationwide. And the final question was, what is a healing justice movement? Who is a healing justice movement accountable to? What is new or different about the healing justice movement from other movements? Those were the 4 questions that really brought us together. So once again, we talking about building a movement as healing. There was 3 sub-themes that emerged from my analysis of this critical ethnography case study of the summit over 2 days. Mini case study. The first sub-theme is this concept of legacy, acknowledging our ancestors, elders, and youth. So this idea that, building a grassroots movement is healing, and there's a piece of it that's like the legacy, acknowledging the thread of the community. A second big thread within this was called grassroots wisdom for survival and healing. So the wisdom you get from grassroots cultures, grassroots communities, specific contexts, and specific circumstances to respond to those things, how sharing those things with each other are important for survival and healing. And then the final sub-theme that emerged from this large analysis of building a grassroots movement as healing is hope and spirit to build and sustain a grassroots movement. So let's go into the first big sub-theme, the legacy, acknowledging our elders, ancestors, and youth. The first ever Healing Justice Summit started off with energy. H.O.L.L.A organizer Kieran runs on stage in front of a packed room screaming, yo, 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 we are here, dressed in a red do-rag, black jeans, and red and black Healing Justice Movement Summit t-shirt. Kieran continued, this is the first ever Healing Justice Youth Summit. Say it loud with me, Youth Summit. 1, 2, 3, Youth Summit. Kieran led us as the Healing Justice Summit welcomer. Kieran's role was to bring spirit into the summit's atmosphere. After 2 to 3 minutes of hyping up the crowd and screaming at the top of his lungs, are you ready? Are you ready? The crowd was woke. Kieran then introduced our elders, Cheryl Wilkins, aka Missy, and Kathy Boudin. Both Cheryl and Kathy are formerly incarcerated women who lead program and organizing at the Center for Justice at Columbia University. Both these elders have long history with prison organizing while serving time in Bedford Hill correctional facilities and previous grassroots organizing experience before being incarcerated at Bedford Hills correctional facility. Kathy and Cheryl walked up to the stage with big smiles. Kathy grabbed the mic with her bright red Healing Justice Movement t-shirt Summit on, Healing Justice Movement Summit t-shirt on and said, I don't know if I can keep up with that energy talking about Kieran. The crowd started laughing. But I just want to say, this is like a dream come true, that H.O.L.L.A is here at Columbia University, the Center for Justice. I have to tell you, when Cheryl and I came here to the Center for Justice 9 years ago, we said we will make this space a place that is not isolated from community, where the university has no relationships to the rest of the world. But H.O.L.L.A is here, you are here. You are bringing the world. You are bringing the next generation. I'm a little older than you, but you are keeping me down. You are keeping me young. You are going to make change in the world. I don't know how else to say it. I can bless you, but that is not really my thing. I just want to say you are welcome and we love you. That was deep. Shout out to Kathy for that. So let's keep it going. Building a movement requires a connection to the past. In many incidents, permission from elders to lead. From the very beginning of H.O.L.L.A's Healing Justice Movement, and particularly from this analysis of the summit, H.O.L.L.A created an atmosphere that honored the legacy, the intergenerational connection of struggle and resistance. Kathy's opening remarks is one of the many manners Intergenerational healing was cultivated, uplifted, and shared across H.O.L.A's healing justice movement and within community. After Kathy's opening remarks, she passed the mic to her partner, Cheryl Wilkins, with a big smile. Cheryl grabbed the mic, her dreads pulled back in a designed ponytail, wearing a black dress shirt tucked neatly in her tan khakis. Cheryl shared more about our legacy. I just want to add, this would have never happened, us being at Columbia, if there was no new leadership at Medgar Evers College. The crowd erupted. We looked at new leadership model and how they included community with the academy, and that combination can do for what that combination could do for criminal justice reform. So we have to acknowledge our boy Eddie Ellis, our mentor, our friend, our brother. The crowd erupted again. And yes, his beautiful daughter is right here. Shout out to Greer. And the crowd erupted again. So yeah, you are welcome here, H.O.L.A, because we were welcome in his space. And this is how we have to do this here in the movement. We have to work together, and we're not going to fight each other for anything. We can't let anything turn us against one another. With that said, let's kick it off. Kathy, standing next to Cheryl with her arms folded, smiling ear to ear, watched her friend electrify the crowd. Cheryl shared a story about movement history. Her comments provided instructions to the next generation. She then passed the mic to Dr. Devon Pryor, one of the co-founders of the Center for New Leadership with Eddie Ellis. Kathy and Cheryl walked off the stage. Dr. Devon Pryor opened with, "I'm humbled to be here. YOC H.O.L.A is a manifestation of what was once an idea." Back in the early 90s, when Eddie Ellis and I first started organizing, we thought of the day when we will not only influence a movement of people across the country of America at that time who was known as ex-convicts and ex-offenders, and decided to take control of our own destiny and to create our own narrative. And at first we asked that we do not be called those degrading names in the derogatory term. The crowd started screaming, clapping, and stomping. And then we demanded it. For those of you who recall those times, we were so aggressive when we first came out that people stopped inviting us to their panels. So we started walking around with our own name tags and plaques, and we will continue to go to conferences and just invite ourselves. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand the seeding of the movement. It was very tender times, very challenging, and very difficult. People did not want this population, people impacted by the history of incarceration, formerly incarcerated, currently incarcerated people in communities and our families. They did not want us here. There was a stigma that was attached to the people who had their time in prison in our communities. We have been pushed out, locked out, shut out, and never allowed to come back in. So we are not here because people invited us here or opened the door or welcomed us with open arms. We are here because we kicked down the door. And he showed how he kicked down the door and demanded that we have a presence and that we are here. And the crowd erupted again. Dr. Devine continued, "I just want to open with that idea. I also want to say that we have always had an intergenerational model. From Center for New Leadership inception, that was Eddie's concept, not only to create and nurture, but to develop leadership, but prepare the next generation to take the lead as well." Dr. Devon Pryor also shares stories about grassroots movement history. Oral history is critical for sustaining and building grassroots movements that are intergenerational. So we're talking about the oral history and how that's important for the thread of knowing, learned lessons and the stories. Dr. Devon Pryor ended his remarks and passed the mic to the co-founders of H.O.L.A. So Butter Lab, Craig, /Shaq, A-Rocks, myself, and we was additional threads of the legacy before we passed it off to YOC. So that kind of captures the first sub-theme, the legacy, and speaking to like how important the legacy is into building a grassroots movement. The second big finding, sorry, not the second big finding, the second sub-theme and the second big finding of building a grassroots movement as healing is the grassroots wisdom we get for survival and healing. And at the end of day one, we called up all of the people doing circles, facilitation workshops, teaching, that come from all over the country in different grassroots contexts, to share with the community that night, what does healing and justice mean to them in their work. And we heard from many. The first people that we heard from was Community United for Restorative Justice. Shout out to Courage from Oakland, and Indigo, Jose, and George all spoke. Courage mission is to unlock the leadership of young people to dream beyond the bars. They look to young people for leadership in transforming their community, our communities, by investing in young people's healing, activism, and inspiration. Indigo shared. So I represent Courage, Community United for Restorative Youth Justice. Somebody says it takes courage, and the whole crowd says it takes courage. It takes courage to go outside yourself and heal with your community. Tomorrow we're doing a workshop called La Cultura Cura, which means culture cures. Sorry for that translation. This skill share will identify and demonstrate the different ways that Communities United for Restorative Youth Justice implements cultural and artistic healing practice to engage, develop, and sustain young leaders. So hit us up. We incorporate a lot of indigenous practice and a lot of healing practice in our cultural work. Shout out to Courage. That was one expression of Courage talking about their work. Next up was Urban Peace Movement from Oakland. Urban Peace Movement, they build youth leadership to transform culture, social conditions that lead to community violence and mass incarceration. Urban Peace Movement also is like one of the founders of the Healing Center Youth Organizing Model that supports young people to feel self-confident and hopeful while empowering them to work for healing, social justice, and a brighter future for us all. Nicole and young brother Kay both spoke. Nicole offered insights about their work. Nicole said, and I'm honored to be here. I'm Nicole from Urban Peace Movement. I'm representing Oakland as well. I'm a fourth generation Oakland resident, actually. As folks know, Oakland has a long tradition of activism. And we are really proud to be in that legacy, but we also got a lot to learn as well. New York City is a really big culture, and we feel so blessed to be here. We talked to Cory on the phone, but never met him in person. So it's nice to see you in person, Cory and H.O.L.L.A. But we just feel excited to be here and share what we do in Oakland. We will be sharing a workshop tomorrow called Heal the Healers. This skill share will explore the need for healing spaces for activists, community organizers, outreach workers, and folks who hold up young people from our neighborhoods. The work we do demands so much of our time and heart, and sometimes we forget to take care of ourselves. Join us to have a conversation about why it's important that we make time to heal ourselves and heal the healers. Shout out to Nicole and Urban Peace Movement. Nicole was followed by Sammy Nunez from Fathers and Families of San Joaquin of Stockton, California. In the Central Valley of California, Fathers of Families of San Joaquin mission is to promote the cultural, spiritual, economic, and social renewal of the most vulnerable families in Stockton and the greater San Joaquin Valley. Sammy opened with, "My name is Sammy Nunez. I came by way of Stockton, California. It is good to be with you relatives here today. You know when family, everything changes. You know when you with family, everything changes, right?" The crowd responds. "I'm here with Fathers and Family of San Joaquin because first they came for our fathers, then they came for our mothers, and now they're coming for our babies. So we are here to heal, deal, and get real. I'm formerly incarcerated like many other of my comrades, and I'm really feeling the energy and the vibe in the air, and tomorrow we're going to keep that energy up. Just want to give a shout out to Cory and H.O.L.L.A. Big up, homie. You got family in California, not just in the Bay Area, but in Central Valley as well. Holla. Shout out to Sammy. Shout out the fathers and family of San Joaquin. Shout out to the Central Valley area. So that was some of the spirit, man. Share a couple of more. One more. Ashley Ellis from Breathe, which stands for Balanced, Restored, Empowered, Affirmed, Transformed, and Healed. Circles for My Sisters, founded in Bronx, New York. Breathe mission is create space for sisters to heal and breathe. This is what Ashley shared about her work that she was going to do with Breathe the following day. My name is Ashley Ellis. I created a space called Breathe to balance, restore, empower, affirm, transform, and heal. Sisters for My Sisters. Breathe was created out of a space when I was working for an organization with women in commercial, sexual, exploited spaces, and they did not have a space for them. And to be honest, there is no space for any of my sisters, especially girls in the juvenile justice system or punishment system. And so I was like, I need a space for my sisters to breathe. We need to heal too. We need space to heal with one another without interference or anything else. Breathe was created 4 years ago, and we are still here. We are still running. But tomorrow, it won't be a presentation. We are not here to present anything. But if you are here for healing justice, we came here to heal. So we're going to create space for our sisters to heal. So all our girls, women, sisters of color, you got a niece, a cousin, or a friend, bring them. If you need that, we will create a space for them, for us, by us. This is not a show. This is real. This is a time to uplift and reclaim sisters that we have lost to the injustice system, to violence, being lost by ourselves. We are showing up today to be found. So just show up tomorrow and be more of an experience than a presentation. Shout out to Breathe. Shout out to Ashley. So that was some of the energy around grassroots wisdom for survival and healing. And there was many people who shared the following day of the summit, day 2, these workshops, these circles. And there was many experiences in the circle that people experienced knowledge and healing and relationship building. And then as the debrief of all of those circles, there was many cross-sharings of knowledge, debrief and circle building. The final thread of the building a grassroots movement as healing, the third thread is hope and spirit to build and sustain grassroots movement. And I opened up this section with a quote from Sean Jenwright, who spoke at the first night during the keynote. And Sean says, today, tonight, tomorrow, I hope that it is something that you get here from the ideas that we share. I want to thank Cory for this invitation, really all of H.O.L.A for this vision to bring people together. I think this is the first Healing Justice Summit conference. Now, there was other stuff in Detroit, particularly shout out to Cara Page, and people doing work around bringing Healing Center into work in 2009, 2010, Alley Media Conference, other places too. But this is the first Healing Justice Summit that was led by young people. But it is definitely not going to be the last, Sean Jenwright said, back to him. Because this movement is going to spread around the country, and we're going to have a profound impact on seeking joy and seeking justice. Close quote, Sean Jenwright. So Sean Jenwright is talking about how this is a place to generate that energy, to build that energy, and to keep that energy moving forward, to sustain grassroots movement. And that energy is hope. That energy is what we call spirit. So hope and spirit was shared across the Healing Justice Summit 2 days. In moments, spirit was packed within youth and community performances. We had a lot of performances the opening night and the second day. In other circumstances, energy was generated from listening to each other's analysis by asking the right question, asking the hard question, and through the rituals and ceremonies that we shared on the second day. There was many moments. In day 2, we opened with a 30-minute presentation of our community-specific approach to Healing Center youth organizing and Healing Center youth healing justice in front of the morning audience. We shared our legacy. We shared our Healing Center curriculum process, and our young people shared their experience through that radical healing curriculum process. And after 30 minutes, we opened up for comments and breathe outs. And we had an attendee from Philly who reflected on their journey of coming there and why they came there. And this is what they said. They said, "Greetings, everyone. My name is Sheena, and I'm here from Philly. I was inspired to come to this conference because there are definitely some models in Philly that look very similar to the work of H.O.L.L.A and YOC particular, but I want to make that more prevalent. I can really just feel the transformation that is present in a lot of the young folks. The way that you are embodying this sense of working on internal transformation and healing, I could just feel that spirit. So props to you all." So this is a organizer, a youth developer, a person from Philly that's trying to understand community-specific models to youth development and make that more prevalent in Philadelphia, who drove here to kind of like see if our work is something that could help them with that. And then in the process of saying, like, I feel like your work is something that can help us with that, they were saying that they also can feel from listening and seeing our young people like internal transformation and healing as an important process. So that's another example of how like hope and spirit could be felt in the moment, but also the understanding of hope and spirit being an internal part of youth development pedagogy and process as well. So going back to Ashley Ellis, who was leading circles the second day she comes in with a quote here as well. Let's read a little bit. So this attendee that gave that earlier response traveled over 3 hours to the summit. And, you know, after that response, in a couple of more responses, it felt kind of quiet. So we asked them, is there any more spirits in the room that wanted to say anything before we went to a break? And this is when Ashley jumped in and said, "I just want to say that H.O.L.L.A is doing the damn work." The audience clapped their hands together. "I do want to commend you all and lift you all up. You are so dope." Thank you, Ashley. "When I say you all are doing the work from the inside, I mean, I hear that question. It is an embodied experience. So what you know is what you live and how people experience you. The healing work that you all are doing makes me so excited. And to see this healing work is taken up across the country in non-traditional ways that the brothers look like the men I grew up with are talking about healing, that is so big." You know, the brothers that grew up looking like the men I knew that are now talking about healing, that is so big, because this was not even part of the language when I was coming up. So I'm just inspired. You are doing the damn work, and I don't care what nobody say, and y'all make it look good, and y'all make it feel good, and just encountering y'all is a healing experience. So I just want to lift that up, Ashe. And that's deep too, because Ashley is talking about what we learned about in the other finding about vulnerability as emotional knowledge, the sub-point about vulnerability as a practice of truth-telling, that the facilitation and creating a space of vulnerability in itself could be part of the healing process. And her saying that, like, just encountering y'all is a healing experience, like, really speaks to that. But she's also talking about, like, the energy and the hope and the spirit to see black men, to see other men, to really embody healing. How that's energy to take with her, to take with her back to her block, to really affirm us, to let us know that, yo, you need a whole lot of energy. You're doing something that's different than how we grew up. So that's some of the ways that we talk about hope and spirit as important ingredients for building and sustaining the movement. You know that. So reflections like the one above give small picture into the hope and spirit cultivated at the Healing Justice Summit. As Sabufu Simone says, the community is a grounding place The community is a grounding place where people can come together and share their gifts and receive gifts from others. Close quote. Thank you, Simone, for that. The Healing Justice Movement Summit created a space in which we could call in spirit to come and be the drivers, the overseers of our activities. The summit gathered folks to think, to strategize, and to, more importantly, to feel what it means to build and sustain a movement for healing and justice. Those 2 days, we did not win a campaign or we did not change policy, but we created and sustained a spirit and an energy needed to continue the work of healing ourselves and healing our communities. So I end by that in saying chapter 5, building a grassroots movement as healing, and particularly as healing and justice, had 2 big findings. The first one was vulnerability as emotional knowledge for healing, and the second one was building a grassroots movement as healing. And vulnerability as emotional as healing had 2 sub-themes. Vulnerability sees vulnerability and talks about the importance of creating a space where young people can share mutual vulnerabilities with each other and how that deepens emotional knowledge and emotional understanding and of violence and healing amongst and between young people. And then the second sub-theme under that big finding was vulnerability as a praxis of truth-telling, and talking about the importance of creating intimate spaces for being honest with each other and the wisdom that comes from being honest with each other for healing and for development and for feedback and for growth. The second big finding of this chapter was building a healing justice movement, and it had 3 sub-themes. The first one was legacy, acknowledging our ancestors, elders, and youth, understanding the stories and the passing of the torch and the learned lessons and the energy that continues across the issues and the movements and how those things are important for youth development, that's centered in grassroots movement building, and how grassroots movement building is centered in helping youth development, people with their personal development. The second big theme under the building a grassroots movement is the wisdom that comes from our grassroots, our cultures for survival and healing. And we heard from many different practices of community people coming from different geographic and political realities of how they do wellness and why healing is important for our survival and for our healing. And the final sub-theme was hope and spirit to sustain and build movement. We talked about the energy, the feelings, the hope, how ideas and affirmation and the pedagogy of building hope and energy to sustain movement across time, to sustain individual development across time is important for youth development. It's important for community development. So that's chapter 5. Peace.